I seek leave to introduce the bill first stage today. As members of the House know, the single largest cause of family homelessness is landlords issuing vacant possession notices to quit. Many of these landlords are accidental landlords struggling with mortgage distress, under pressure for banks and selling their homes vacant. 2 years ago, Focus Ireland, one of the leading frontline agencies dealing with this problem, recommended that government introduce an amendment to the Residential Tenancies Act to limit the ability of buy-to-let landlords who benefited from tax breaks when they purchased their properties during the boom from issuing such vacant possession notices to quit. The argument was very simple. If people benefited from tax breaks to become landlords back pre-2014, they shouldn't be able to evict people into homelessness when selling their properties under the pressure from the banks now. I and other opposition deputies tabled the Focus Ireland Amendment, as it was called, in 2016 to the Residential Tenancies Amendment Bill, and Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael joined forces to block it. Focus Ireland, again one of the lead agencies in this area, said that if that amendment had been passed, hundreds of families who subsequently became homeless would have been kept in their homes. That's not my view, that's the organisation working with these families. Since Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael opposed that amendment in 2016, family homelessness has increased by a startling 40%, child homelessness has increased by 47%, and that's without us taking into account the 1,600 adults and children controversially removed from the homeless figures at the request of the Minister for Housing. So the bill that we're passing through first stage today is the Focus Ireland Amendment, and it's our intention to bring this forward either through the lottery or PMB at the earliest opportunity. It's important to recognise that in the budget last week, the government introduced a new tax break for landlords, 100% mortgage interest relief. The vast majority of landlords do not need that tax break. Yes, some are struggling, but many are not, and in fact, this will just add fuel to the fire of rising rental prices. But I also understand that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael are still under discussions for the possibility of introducing another tax break for landlords, possibly at committee stage. Micheál Martin told Morning Ireland last week that it was in the bag, but Leo Varadkar subsequently confirmed to Mayor Lou MacDonald that no such thing was the case. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But what that tax break proposes is an increase in the threshold for capital gains tax where a landlord keeps a tenant in a property, or indeed where a landlord purchases a property with a tenant in it and keeps them there for 5 years. Now, the problem with that tax break is if the vacant possession notice to quit is forcing families into homelessness, there's no point offering a tax incentive to keep the new landlord in with the tenant if the tenant has already been evicted into homelessness. So in fact, what the government should have done in the budget last week, and what we'll be urging them and Fianna Fáil to do when we table this bill at second stage as soon as we can, is to take more action to prevent families from becoming homeless. If the Dublin Regional Homeless Executive and Focus Ireland are telling us that vacant possession notices to quit is the single largest cause of family homelessness, then the obvious thing to do would be to change the Residential Tenancies Act to prevent such evictions. This is not a silver bullet. This is not going to solve all of the problems. But if it prevented 5, 10, 15 or 20 families from becoming homeless in the coming months, it would be worthwhile passing. And again, I have to say, Focus Ireland are telling us it would prevent many hundreds of families from entering into emergency accommodation with all of the stress and trauma that causes for the adults and children, as well as the additional cost for the taxpayer. So in moving first stage today, I'm urging both Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil to reconsider their opposition to this eminently sensible, simple amendment to the existing legislation and to include it as one of a range of measures that are required to prevent families becoming homeless into the future, and I commend the bill to the House.